All right. Well, we have Gregory Ramos on the line. Gregory, go ahead and introduce yourself for the viewers and kind of give us a breakdown of what it is that you're doing with your company.
All right. First of all, Michael, thanks for inviting me for an interview. It's pretty nice, and I have to say it's my first interview ever. and my name is Gregory. I'm Brazilian, but I live in Australia for about 5 years now.
Okay.
And I just recently had this idea of creating a brand, like a good vibes brand, and sell T-shirts and good message to people. Shirts with good messages. And I am a graphic designer, so I think I thought I could create a nice range of illustrations and designs with this message of a good life and positivity for people to go around with it. And pretty much Conscientees is the name of the website, and it's a hard name to say though, conscientees.com, but I like the way it sounds, and I like the link that it has with consciousness. So yeah, conscientees.com is the name, and if you guys want to access, just go ahead and please feel free.
Okay, excellent. Appreciate you sharing that with us. Let's go ahead and jump right into our discussion. Of course, we're going to be talking about consciousness, and I particularly want to hear your view about it. But before we get into that, I do like to have the viewers understand the lens to which that you're going to be answering the questions, the lens that you're looking through, basically your perspective. And the best way to do that, I've determined, is asking people about their stance on religion. So, if you could, as briefly, or, if you need to kind of elaborate, that's fine. But if you could just describe your position on religion, specifically how you arrived at whatever point you are, and kind of explain if your view is subject to change.
Cool. So I start from when I was a kid. Like in Brazil, the main religion is Catholicism, and since you're born, you're just Catholic. Everybody is. But I've never really went to the church that much. Never, my family was not really into it. And when I was about 8 years old, 9 years old, my father started going to a Baptist church, and my grandpa was going at the time, and then my whole family started going to the church, and we kind of got really into it. And especially my father, he's still going to now, and my mom's really kind of religious as well. She just doesn't go to the church that much.
Okay.
And then lots of biblical knowledge, and I really like what I learned there, but I just don't after a few years I just didn't feel like I was on the right path, I guess. And when you get older as well, you want to go to start going to parties and stuff, and drinking and all these things kind of don't go well with Baptist church. At least in Brazil, they kind of condemned it.
Uh-huh.
And it's a bit weird. And then soon after 16 years old, I just started getting out of it and doing what normal people do. Getting out, going with friends for weekends of party, rave parties, taking drugs and stuff like that. And it was pretty good as well. It taught me a lot of things as well. And I really believe on the power of LSD and the power that LSD has to open one's mind. So I think I learned a lot of things on this time of my life as well. You're always learning, right? And saying that, I got that after that I started to look into a more conscious kind of connection with the universe. And I started in a place called Pachamama, which is kind of an indigenous church, and they teach like the old way, the old method of spiritual knowledge. It was back in Brazil at the time, and I had moved to a new city, and got new friends. These new friends were going to this place, and I don't know if you heard about that, but they used to have ayahuasca, which is like it's a drink. It's a drink from roots and leaves of some Amazon, and it's pretty good. Like it has DMT in it, so it makes you open your eyes, and you can open your eyes, your mind eyes like that.
It's a hallucinogen.
It's kind of. It's not really hallucinogens. It's not like LSD. It's not like you have it and you go crazy and stuff. It's like a ceremony. It takes 8 hours from start to the end, and it's guided by shaman. So it's pretty cool. Like it's like the shaman is the whole time teaching you where to go when you are hallucinating. So you don't hallucinate that much. You just connect to yourself a bit more. It's like lights. It's like you see the light. There's no way to explain that really much. I think someone who is interested in that, he really has to go for it and just try it, because it really is not. It's not bad for your health. It's really good for your mind as well. So it's a really nice experience.
Okay, well, so your parents were somewhat religious. You were kind of feeling a little bit sheltered, or kind of like you were being separated from maybe other worldly experiences, and then you kind of you said, well, maybe these things aren't so bad. Let me try and see. Let me pick and choose and see what I can find outside of this sheltered lifestyle that you felt was kind of holding you back. And then you did try those things, and you turned out, there were some bad experiences, but there were also some good experiences. And you particularly touched on LSD and this tea that you're talking about. So you're more now influenced by almost like a transcendent thought or a deep reflection of your inner self. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think like if you summarize everything that I did through my life, and you get the mix of everything, everything that I learned to the day I was born to now, from the day I was born to now, I really believe that God exists, but it's not like the God that they say on church and stuff. It's not like the God they try to sell you on the story, on the history, and on the world nowadays. And I just believe that if we love each other, and if we believe in something bigger than us, we can actually get a good life. Help each other on a point where everybody's gonna be happy.
Okay, so it's kind of like a deist level, that you think that there is a transcendent agent or being that set everything into motion, maybe, but not portrayed correctly in maybe any one of these other religions that are popularized. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate you sharing that with us. Let's get into the meat of our conversations. I want to jump right into, let's just kind of define consciousness in your view. When we're saying the word consciousness, what are you thinking?
Well, it's in my opinion, it's hard to explain consciousness. And let's see that consciousness is the fact that you can think for yourself, and you can decide on things, and you are conscious. But I don't believe it's just that. I believe consciousness is more like a mental connection with the planet and the universe and everything there is. Like consciousness, in my opinion, is understanding yourself, not just knowing yourself. It's more than just being conscious. I don't know if I'm clear enough, but this
Well,
connection that I'm trying to.
let me interject just for a minute. So, what I've established so far is it is the thinking, the processes of thinking, and then also by doing this thinking, you're connecting with other thinking things.
Yeah, kind of. Well, not just thinking things.
Okay.
I also think that we are connected to the planet itself, to plants
Okay.
and the water, and the animals. I do believe that animals think on their own level.
Mm-hmm.
So I think everything is consciousness. The whole planet has the its own consciousness. So I don't know how to explain exactly where we are on it, but I don't think we are the only one who are actually conscious on the planet, on the universe at all. And yeah, I believe in a collective consciousness. So yeah,
Well, okay. So
it's hard to
to
explain it.
I grant you that it is not simple to explain, and I hate to put you on the hot seat with the definition, but if we were to simplify the best that we can, when we say this is conscious or this is not conscious, or just the idea of consciousness, what are we saying? We're saying something that is connected to something else, or I mean, is it a being? Is it a metaphysical? Is it simply just conceptual, or is it if we could nail down, put a flag down on the attributes of consciousness?
In my opinion, the consciousness that I'm talking about is just like it might be God, it might be consciousness, might be what links everything, and when
Okay.
you are unconscious,
Okay.
when you are unconscious, let's say you are disconnected, when you have too much alcohol and you get unconscious, you just disconnected yourself, like the alcohol made you disconnect from the whole conscious connection, and you're not into the matrix, let's say. Yeah, then
I think I like that. I think I like that. It's kind of like you're plugged in, and everything is
Exactly.
feeding off of this same energy. And when you're for something to not be a part of that, to not be conscious, they're basically unplugged from that. They're not receiving that energy, or they're not participating in the energy that everything else is feeding off of.
Yeah, let's say that's the way I see it. Even when you are like, I always think like everyone's conscious, but why some people just don't care about nature? So they are conscious, but they don't have that strong connection with the universe and everything. So their consciousness didn't get to a level where they can think about the planet themselves and think about being part of the whole thing. So they might be a bit unconscious.
It's conscious but not, or semi-conscious. Okay.
Like zombies.
Okay. Well, now, how does consciousness begin or emerge? What is is there a starting point to consciousness? Back to that scenario where I said it's kind of like everything's being plugged into this power system that's feeding, everything's feeding off of this power. Everyone's connected to that. How does that originate, or how does that emerge? How does one find themselves a part of the consciousness?
Well, that's also hard. uh, let's say that the last thing that I said about the zombies, the people that are not really full conscious, and they don't have this connection. They are conscious. They have conscious inside of them. They are they can choose. They can go to places. They can do what everybody does, but they don't have the great connection. They don't see the whole don't see the whole thing. And I get it starts on yourself, let's say, but you have to be touched by the full consciousness, the full universe consciousness, and you have to start by yourself, but you have to look for it. It's like, to get connected, you have to start, and after starting, there's no way to disconnect. There's no way to just forget everything that you just learned and start throwing I don't know, garbage in the sea. That's the thing.
Okay, so as just to touch on this a little bit more, because I like this part of the conversation. When you're born as an infant, would you say that consciousness begins at that part for a human when they're born, or are they a part of the consciousness prior to them being born?
I think we are actually conscious before we were born. I don't know if you have ever heard of regressions and stuff. I've never done that, but I really want to do it. But people say that they can see inside of their mom's womb, and they can see themselves as a fetus. So if people can go back to that point, I guess they were conscious back there. And I think consciousness start with life. So if anything that is alive probably has a level of consciousness. Trees, animals, and ourselves. And yeah, I think that's it. Like, it starts with life.
Okay. When something like a rock is being formed, a long process of atoms clumping together, and maybe erosion and things of this nature, and just mineral deposits convening on one area, and then becoming this rock, or even just chunks of the earth breaking off, or however you'd like to say the rock got there. Once it is the rock, would you say that a rock is potentially conscious? Or is there a consciousness that emerges within the rock?
Well, I might not say that, though. It's, in my opinion, the rock, or every other element that there is in the planet, it's part of the biggest, the great consciousness, and the part of the whole. Like, we are part of the universe. I like to imagine ourselves as cells, and I like to imagine the planet as an organ or something from, belonging to the universe.
Okay.
And that's the thing. Like, some things might not have consciousness, but they have a purpose. And if they have a purpose, they belong to another conscious, bigger than they, bigger than what they are doing here. And before they were a rock, they probably were something else. They probably were, I don't know, bacteria. I'm not really sure about.
No. I think you're on. I think you're on to a good thing, because I always say, if you were to, I'm just go with this scenario. If you were to put an atomic GoPro, right? You know what a GoPro is?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so if you were to put like an atomic sized GoPro on an atom, right? That's clumped to a molecule in someone's brain.
Yeah.
When that person's brain decays and when they, die, it would be interesting to fast forward 150 years and see where that atom goes.
Yeah.
So then, if in taking that view and thinking about that, I always think, well, the air that I'm breathing now are filled with molecules or atoms that were once a part of a rock or once a part of someone else's brain, even, or are the atoms that will become part of someone's brain in the future.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. That's what I think as well.
So that's very interesting. I think I agree with that, and I will go on the record and say that when I was younger, I think I convinced myself that I had some vague memory of being in my mother's womb, but now that I'm older, that thought is kind of more faded. So I don't know how accurate that was, or if that was more of me imagining what it would be like. But
Yeah.
it is interesting to think about how early the human brain, or any other animal maybe, can store information.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think we are always storing that.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree. The other thing I wanted to get into is, so now that we've defined consciousness to basically, as simply as we could put it, as a connection and kind of an awareness, whether you're the rock, right, you're the button on the T-shirt of the person wearing it, right, you're part of the overall awareness. And then we said that consciousness emerges and begins, for humans anyway, possibly before you're born.
Yeah.
Would you say that consciousness in a human being is voluntary or involuntary?
Um, I think it starts involuntary, and you can live your whole life like involuntary conscious, and but if you look for it, if you look for a connection, you're gonna find it, and then it's not involuntary anymore. Then you start to evolve voluntary, and you get more and more consciousness, and probably that's it. Like you you have it, but you can get more of it. you know.
Okay, is it forced upon you? Um,
It's
able
natural, I think.
to you're not able to choose if you want the consciousness or to be a part of the consciousness or not. Um, it's an involuntary. You're forced to be a part of it.
Yeah, when you were a baby, cannot say that you were unconscious because you're doing things, you're learning, you start to walk, you're biting stuff, and you probably don't know what you're doing, but you're conscious. People talk to you, you can understand, and that's the thing. Like your voice, always alive, and as I think consciousness starts with life. It starts involuntary, and you can have more of it if you want to. If you want to be um, worried about the planet, worried about what's happening with your life and the life of others around you, you can, or you can just you know don't care about anything and just live your life until the day you die, and people, there are some people that get drunk every day, and this is a way of getting away of consciousness. I think they don't like to be conscious,
Oh,
and
but
thinking too much.
something like, okay, so like the baby, you said, even though you don't know what you're doing, you're still conscious. Something like the rock wouldn't know what it is, or what it's doing, if anything, right? Maybe it's sitting still, or the wind's blowing it, or something kicked it, right? It doesn't know any of these things. But then you would say that the rock is a part of the consciousness, and is not conscious regardless of it not knowing.
Yeah. Yeah, it gets to a point that it gets messed up, right? Like, you can, as I said, you can have a conscious, involuntary conscious, and as soon as you know what consciousness is, you can get more of it. So I all humans have a higher level, let's say, of consciousness, and then if you want to get more of it, you can go and find it. And a rock, let's say, a rock is not really conscious. It's like part of the whole thing. So
it has to have the ability to. It has to have the ability to eventually become aware of itself.
Exactly. Yeah. As a rock, let's say a rock's not alive. A rock is part of life. Is part of the planet, and rocks are pretty much like important for the planet, let's say.
Right.
And let's say that a rock in the planet is like your thumbnail. It doesn't have a conscience, but it keeps growing and doing its part, and it's part of the biggest consciousness. Let's say.
Okay. Now, does consciousness serve a purpose? What is the purpose of consciousness?
I think that if you start to look for your own consciousness, you start to evolve your consciousness, you start to care more about others and about the planet, and then it's serving you a purpose. When you start giving back, when you start being mindful about what you can do to help, not just living your life, what you can do to change the bad things, and what you can do to accept the things that you cannot change, then it's serving a purpose. You're just not using your life to make money, or to live as the system says that you have to live. You're being more than what is told you to be, and that's pretty much the purpose, let's say, of human consciousness. And
okay, so it's kind of like the Matrix a little bit, where you're not just following the society, but basically you're saying you're finding your own path. You're even if your own path ends up being the same as what the society around you is telling you is correct, or the way to live, or the way to be, just the fact that you're finding whatever your own path is, and thinking for yourself, or acting on your own accord. Is that accurate, or am I a little bit off?
Yeah. Then I think that's the purpose. Like if you get to the point where you just try to be different. You try to not just follow what society says to you, or society has for. Then yeah, it's that's the purpose. Let's say that's how you use your consciousness. Let's say well.
Okay, so why would you? I mean, if everything can be a part of the, I guess, ultimate awareness, or the ultimate energy, or the power system that we're all feeding off of, if everything is a part of this, then why couldn't it be that everything is just rocks? I mean, why are some things more, I hate to use the word advanced, why are some things able to be more like a human versus a stone. I mean, if the stone is still part of the consciousness, then regardless of a human or a deer or a dolphin or anything like this, I mean, why have the variation of the use of that energy versus just everything being stones or rocks?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a hard one as well.
Sorry about that.
No worries. Well, let me think of it. Well, let's say that Mars is just rocks, right? Rocks, and people are trying to find water and
Okay,
other things there. Let's say,
as far as we know,
mainly
yeah.
rocks. As far as we know, mainly rocks. Mars is there for a reason. Mars is not there just going around the sun. It probably serves for another purpose and a bigger purpose. So we have this consciousness ourselves, and we are part of the bigger consciousness, but we are enlightened enough to know our consciousness. And I don't know why it happened to us. I don't know why humans have it and at the same time don't use it. I don't know why people just were born like we are, instead of we are just another monkey, or another animal. I don't know why we have this much intelligence and we sometimes don't use it. So we are part of something bigger, and this something bigger is still a mystery for me, and I think it's still a mystery for everyone, for anybody that has ever looked into it and tried to find it. So let's say that if we have this consciousness, if we have this level of knowing ourselves and being smart enough to change stuff and build stuff we do, we should just understand that we are enlightened and try to use our consciousness in a smart way, other than the rock that just is just there and is part of the whole universe.
Now hold on. Now I mean, I agree with I think with about 80, maybe 90% of what you said. And I don't want to say that I don't want to say the remaining part I disagree with, but I do want to explore that maybe 20 to 10%. What I'm getting at is those stones will remain in effect longer than our bodies will sustain. So wouldn't it be more bang for the buck of consciousness to produce, or to only focus on stones that can still be part of the consciousness, that can't harm the consciousness or do have any negative aspect, as far as I can tell, to the consciousness, versus betting big or spending on diversified levels of energy or awareness that are constantly being recycled. I mean, the stones will eventually deteriorate, I suppose, given a long enough time. But that's what I guess that's what I'm getting at is if a stone is still a part of the consciousness as humans are, a stone can't conduct this interview. I'll grant you that. But I guess what I'm getting at is why, or can you think of any reason why consciousness would allow for beings or creatures or even plant life that is alive that's going to eventually deteriorate, and I guess the atoms would be recycled faster than something like a stone or dark energy or anything like this, if it's all still a part of the consciousness?
The question would be like, why we're here?
Right. I guess that's the simple way to put it. Yes.
Yeah,
But why?
yeah.
Do you think consciousness is? If we're going to say consciousness is the universe, right? Locally, would you say that it's rolling the dice, or is it deciding to place certain, I guess, bets on individual holders of percentages of its consciousness?
Yeah, I don't think it can decide actually. Like, it just happens involuntary, and you know when you have when you know what is inside, when you know what you're doing, then you can decide what to do with it. But then, just because we are, more, let's say, in another level, we are more connected. Not more connected, but we can see the connection. Um, Other than other animals that are just living their lives, and they're gonna wake up, um, eat, and hunt, and reproduce, and then die.
Mm-hmm.
We are making choices along the way. We are doing the same things, but making choices along the way. And the rock doesn't have a choice, and the planet and the universe doesn't have a choice. Let's say we have a choice, and we can be more conscious, and take care of what we have, take care of the planet, take care of others, and but we can just we can just try everything. I can be completely wrong as well.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
can
yeah.
just try everything, and it doesn't matter what we do. Another I don't know, another holocaust can come, or another I don't know, apocalypse, let's say, can
Mm-hmm.
come. Another glacial era can come, and it doesn't matter what we do here. We're gonna eventually die. Everyone, the planet's gonna get dry again, or cold again, or too hot for us again, and life's gonna start again. So, talking about our consciousness, I don't think we actually can change that much stuff, but we can change our types, and in in relation to the planet, to the universe, to the whole, you know consciousness out there, um, then we are just like one more rock.
Okay. So when you say something like, you're a deist and you believe in some type of a god, when you say a god, most people are going to think of, something that looks like a human, or maybe a male, even, or a man, if you could say.
Hmm.
When you're saying a god, are you attributing that three-letter word to consciousness itself, or are you saying there's a separate entity that is responsible for creating, like, separate from consciousness? Are you saying that the thing that you are worshiping, that you look up to, that you give praise to, is consciousness itself? Or are you saying that consciousness is nice, that's great, but consciousness was created by a god that most people would think
Um,
of as like a male, a father, or to use Christianity, for example, or something along those lines?
yeah, no, I see. Like, they are, in my opinion, they are the same thing. In my opinion, everything is part of God. I think God is, the whole universe,
So
and
God is the
it just
universe. God is not a you know,
not an entity.
not a deciding, pulling the strings. You know, pray for your car keys to be found, and I'm going to find them for you. You're saying that what you're using that word for, God, is the everlasting, or the emergence of consciousness itself, or the ability for everything to be interconnected involuntarily. Is that accurate?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
I
I
think
don't know.
there's a word for that, called pantheism. I don't know if you're aware of
Yeah, I
pantheism.
am aware of it. When I was in the 10th grade or something like that, um, 5th grade, I don't know. One of my colleagues, like we were like 11 years old or 12 years old, and he came up with this. Like we were talking about religion, blah blah blah, and at the time I was going to the Baptist church, and just came up with this pantheism thing, and I really love it. Like I was like, what? That's exactly what I think. That's exactly what how I see everything. So why why am I Baptist? Like,
Exactly. Yeah. And it's good. It was
and
good that you just that you researched it and you discovered, because that's exactly what it sounds like is pantheism. So, okay. I do want to move into, are there any downsides to consciousness?
um, well, I can't see any downsides. Like
What about like a Holocaust or
yeah, like some people do weird stuff. Like some people choose to do weird stuff, what with
with
the
their
life that they
consciousness?
have. Um,
That
let's
takes,
say Hitler. Yeah.
yeah, like a rock
Um,
couldn't cause a Holocaust or couldn't extinguish life
exactly.
without life maybe using the rock, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah, exactly.
so what would a downside be of consciousness? I mean,
But
could
I think you have too
consciousness get rid of
choice.
itself?
Yeah, you have too much choice, and you can choose to be bad. So if you can choose to be bad, you're not like a lion that goes hunting and eats one deer or eats one zebra. You can't choose to kill all the zebras, and you can be dumb enough to think that you can kill zebras and store it, and then you don't think about well, how I'm gonna eat in 10 years if the zebras are not there anymore. So you can be dumb enough to do dumb stuff, and like animals that are just living their life. Sometimes I think that we shouldn't have this level of consciousness that we have. Sometimes I think we should be more like another animal out there, and I see all these buildings and stuff that we have, and I just think like, well, how can we go back? Yeah. And there's no way to go back. So um, I think the planet one day is gonna expel us. It's gonna look at us and say, well, that's it. You guys had your chance. Now you're gonna have to go. you know.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Is consciousness demonstrable? Can it be demonstrated? Can we accurately, I guess, differentiate between a stone being a part of the consciousness and maybe a human being being a conscious entity? I mean, how do you determine the difference between something containing more access to the consciousness?
It's exactly what we just said. Like if you choose to do stuff, you think, if I do something today, something else gonna happen tomorrow. You're showing that you're conscious, and you can think, you can um, go and do stuff, and then you just have to deal with the consequences.
Well, hold on. Well, could it be argued that stones have decided to not do anything?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Probably. Exactly as animals, they just don't decide anything. They just do stuff. They can decide to eat because they are hungry. And they have a level of communication as well. I'm pretty sure that they can talk to each other and show love to each other
Okay, so
and
language and choice. See, because my argument about choice was that stones could be choosing to not communicate and could be
yeah,
choosing
yeah,
not to move and not to interact with anything else around it. How would we
yeah.
determine the difference? How would
They
we
just
determine if it's deciding to do this or not deciding to do this?
they just got tired, right?
Would you say
They
that
got,
something has to have a brain to be conscious,
uh,
or to
not
be
really.
not stone-like? Or I mean, how do we draw the line and say, okay, these things over here are not conscious entities, and these things over here are conscious entities? Is it just simply the language and the
Um,
choosing, or
I think we go back to the life thing. Like the rock is not alive, but it's part of life, and we go back to the rock being a cell of a human body, let's say, maybe a dead cell, I don't know.
okay?
And if you see like plant, it has a kind of, it has a level of choice as well. Like, it goes after the sun. If you see like a sunflower, it turns itself to the sun because it likes to receive the light. And we can see consciousness there. We can see that this sunflower is choosing to be, um, towards the sun. It's choosing to get the light, and even though it doesn't have a brain, it doesn't think. It's doing something itself. It's like it's in
Survival instinct
it's in
to
movement.
reach toward the sun, which I guess I could use the word knows that it needs the sun for
Yeah,
photosynthesis to feed itself. And yeah, you're right. A plant will grow toward the sun. It's so interesting that you said that, because I was having a conversation about this maybe 2 weeks ago, that there is a study, or there was a study that came out where they were holding fire to plants, and they had them rigged up with all types of sensor indicators and things of this nature. Um, and they were able to almost conclude that there was a correlation between the plants and the fire, to where one could almost say, and this is really out there, but one could almost say that they were afraid of the fire, or that there was a reaction going on. Now, they didn't know what that reaction is. The reaction was only present once the plants got hot. And then some plants were lit on fire. And then those, I don't have the exact study pulled up here, but I mean, I'm sure you could Google it.
yeah,
Emotion of fauna. And then it just made me think, every time I'm mowing the lawn, you know, is there each individual grass blade that's maybe inaudible and not able to communicate, that is suffering or feeling some type of pain? And then that makes me think, what if my lawn was covered with children, or dogs, or and I'm coming out there with my lawnmower to mow them down. So that was very interesting. So yeah, I mean, that's a good point with plants. They don't have a brain, and yet they have this survival instinct, I guess you could say, or
instinct.
mechanism that I don't know if they're willing themselves, or if it's just a numbness, no thinking or thought involved, and it's just an autonomous action that they're doing as part of their genetic makeup. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
So
it's kind of hard to when it gets to that point, it's kind of hard to even explain things to yourself. And inside of my brain now, I'm just thinking about lots of stuff, and I always get to the same point, like everything's connected, and everything is part of everything. We just have this enlightenment, and we choose more than others.
enlightenment. Yeah, that's a
Uh,
good word to use. Yeah. Okay.
and, uh,
Is consciousness finite? Does it eventually fade? Are you eventually unplugged from the power source for good?
yeah. Well, I'm not really, I'm not really convinced about what happens after one, and I'm not really convinced about what happens, with your mind, or let's say your spirit. after it died, let's say. Um, so I don't think anybody has the answer to that actually, um, other than people that have already died. And I don't know if if I believe in reincarnation or life after death or stuff like that. So
Well, the
I
idea
believe
of the idea of the atoms with the GoPro, right? The GoPro idea.
it keeps living, right?
Right, the atoms like a bag of marbles that you pop open and they drop to the floor and they spread out everywhere. You
Yeah,
know, it's like taking a car
yeah,
apart. You know, you take the steering wheel and the rims and the engine and different parts of the vehicle and you put them on other vehicles.
yeah,
You know, you wouldn't call those other vehicles a Dodge Challenger, right? Just because they had the parts of that Dodge Challenger, but those parts continue on in the other vehicles.
exactly.
So,
Yeah,
someone that you know had like maybe a near death experience and they say, hey, when I was clinically dead, and they can give you this recollection of everything that they experienced, like you were talking about the light and things like this, when they see the light or they're hovering over themselves, in the operating room, and things like this. Do you take that as a serious inquiry to explore, or do you say that it's mere anecdotal testimony?
it's hard to say because I've never been there, um, never had one experience like this. But um, going back to the regression things that I said, that people see themselves inside of their mom's wombs and stuff. Some people can go even back more, like even more far back, like let's say to other lives and stuff, and they can see their other lives. But I'm not really sure if this is something that you create in your mind, or as you have these parts of other people, like atoms and stuff. You can just remember stuff that are inside of your body, but were not really you. Um, so
Okay.
let's say like when I was young, when I was like eight, like I don't know, 7 years old. One day I was telling my mom about my grandmother and about stuff that she used to do, and stuff. I was kind of remembering stuff in my mind of things that I had never knew. Like, I haven't met my grandmother. You know, she passed away before I was born, and then there was me telling my mom, "Oh, my grandmother didn't like this, and my grandmother didn't like this and that, and my grandmother liked to use dresses like this and blah blah blah." And my mom was like, "What? How can you know that? Like, I never told you anything, and your grandmother never told you anything about that. Like, how can you?"
Okay.
And I had a picture. I had a picture inside of my mind. I had the picture of my grandmother. I was remembering stuff that I never saw. So
You were accessing information from the vault of
from my DNA, let's say.
and we will get into the subconscious here in just a second, but and I think that is very interesting. But I want to hold off on just for a second. Earlier, you said that you believe that consciousness is a collective body of nature, that it's a singularity, that it's one pulse, and it's one heartbeat, I guess, if you want to say. That everything is in equilibrium. Even me here in Florida, somehow I'm connected to the atom that is on the floor by your foot.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything outside of consciousness or the
Probably
collective
not.
consciousness? Is consciousness Can consciousness be aware of? So if there is a collective consciousness and it's all connected, does that leave room for anything outside of it to not be connected to that?
I don't think so. like let's say consciousness is also part of God, let's say, and we are all part of God, and God is consciousness, and God is the universe, and the universe itself doesn't decide anything; it just happens. I like to imagine the Big Bang and how it all started, as people try to explain it. I'm not really convinced, anyway. But I like to imagine that we started as a little atom that exploded, right? And then this explosion started to create everything in the whole universe, and it's still exploding. Like I heard or I read once that the universe is actually not infinite. The universe is said that it's infinite because it's still growing, because it's always in
it's expanding, right?
And it's expanding, and then I believe that if it's still expanding, it's because it's still exploding. So we are inside of an explosion that it's taking billions and billions and billions of years to finish, but one day, as an explosion here on, if you get a bomb and you explode it, it's gonna get huge, and then it's gonna decrease in size again, and it's gonna fade out, and probably that's what's gonna happen to this universe. Let's say that I believe in all the other universes as well, and all dimensions and stuff. So yeah, I actually even forgot what the question was, because I went too far.
No, that's okay. No, the question was, can there be anything outside of consciousness? Like, in your view, you're more of a pantheist, that everything is connected, and you call that God, but you don't attribute any features to like a physical feature of a God. It's just that you're using that word God to describe everything that exists, basically. What I was saying is there something outside of that? Can there be something outside, off the table, basically? Can there be something off the table that's not included in the consciousness?
Probably not. Probably, I don't believe there is something off. Like I don't believe there is, something outside. It's hard. It's hard to explain everything and at the same time make sense. But let's say if there is another consciousness or anything outside of this universe that we live, it's another universe. It's another thing similar to what we have.
Okay, like for example, like in a human being, this brings us to the next to the final question here. Like in a human being, if we could kind of expand on the concepts of like subconscious or unconsciousness. If consciousness is this interconnected force or happening, this phenomena, if a human being can be unconscious, like you said, with the drinking or like in a coma, or maybe even when you go to sleep, I guess, right? You're unplugged.
Yeah.
Before the universe began, would you say the universe was unconscious?
It's hard to say that, and it's hard even to think, like,
can it happen again?
What was before? What was before? What it was it like? Is this universe inside of a cosmos? Is like it's a hard question to know. Like I can just imagine too far, and the farthest I can imagine is our universe being an explosion on the side of other millions of explosions, which are other universes, and I don't think we will ever be able to see it.
But just conceptually speaking, before the explosions, right? So there are no explosions happening. That's where we are right now. There's no explosions. Would you consider the consciousness to be unconscious?
Probably. I never thought about that.
No, then that's exactly why I'm doing what I'm doing with the one good reason. I want people to think about the things that they hold, true to themselves, or that they take for granted, or that they hold, to be correct, and explore that. And then, if we determine that there's something more to it, or maybe you don't have a good reason to think the way that you do, then maybe you'll pivot, or you'll postpone your position and continue exploring. So now we've gotten to this point where we're almost in agreement that there could have been, that the consciousness at one point was unconscious before these explosions. So if consciousness was just to keep it simple, was asleep, right? Or before consciousness was born, I guess, if you could say. Does that mean that consciousness is the same as maybe a human life, that it will be extinguished and then eventually, like that bag of marbles, spread in varying percentages, to not be quite the same consciousness, but in essence have some type of fingerprint in the rest of the cosmos? For what I guess what I mean is, will the consciousness that we're currently taking advantage of go back to sleep, and when it awakens, find itself vastly different? Or do you think that once it's been once it's awakened, it cannot go back to sleep? As you said, it's like that once you understand the value of not littering or taking care of the planet, you can't go back. How do you view that? I know that's kind of a very difficult question, but I would like your input on it.
Yeah, it is quite difficult. Well, I guess it can go back to sleep then. But I don't know. Like if these, let's say, the explosion that I was thinking about before ends, it might come back as a trend thing. But everything that there was one day, it's stored there, and I don't know, in the atoms or anything. I probably don't have another question. It's like goes like a bit further than I always thought about it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say I believe it can go back to sleep, but as we are here part of the big thing, we are going back to sleep because we, as soon as we die, we're not done yet. We still being part of the whole thing, and our atoms and everything goes back and is recycled.
Mm-hmm.
So we are not probably, we just have access to consciousness. We are not conscious. That probably is what you were trying to explain before.
Yes, exactly. That we're lining up at the water fountain, and we're all getting a drink, and our cups will eventually be dry. And what I'm asking is, will the water fountain run out of water?
It can, it might can run out of water, but can I don't know, maybe become an ocean or something,
But all these people drinking the water will have to urinate, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, with subconscious and unconsciousness, like if you're in a coma or you're asleep, right? The subconscious, or like you retrieving memories of was it your great grandmother or your grandmother? I'm sorry.
Yeah, great grandmother.
Your great grandmother. With you retrieving these memories, do you think that these concepts exist in any object? Like, would you say a stone is unconscious, but yet a part of the
The
consciousness?
stone I remember. Um, the stone might not. I don't know. I think the stones are here for a long time though.
But now, if we were studying a human being, if you were the only human being, if it was just you and one other human being, right? And
Yeah.
just go with this scenario. I like to do thought experiments. If you were the only other human being, let's just say me, I was in a coma, and you looked at yourself and you said, well, I move like this, I can do these things, I can jump, I can run, I breathe, I can decide to put my shirt over my head, or whatever. We can keep going on. And then you look at me and I'm asleep, or my eyes are closed and I'm still, and I'm not able to do what you do. I'm not responsive. I'm not reacting to you punching me in the face, or I'm not reacting to you cutting me, and things like this.
Not drinking water from the waterfall.
Right. I'm not drinking. I'm not drinking the water. If that was your only example of anything other than yourself, would you look at me like a stone? Or would you say that
Probably.
simply because I resemble your appearance to a degree, we have 2 hands and 2 eyes and 2 feet and 5 fingers in each hand, and things like this, that there's the potential for me to be like you, but there's something keeping me from reaching that level? Or would you say this is just like the lamp, or like the stone, or like, water itself? How would you be able to differentiate between
Even
me
though
having the potential to wake up and be like you versus a stone?
even though you are in the level of consciousness that you are like the stone, you still have the chance, because of the atoms and the way you are formed, like you are a human being, let's say.
Mhm.
You still have the chance to wake up. What happens to people sometimes, they are in coma for years and years, and then they wake up and they even remember the last day before the coma. And you have this body and atoms are organizing in this form. You have the chance to go back to consciousness and to reconnect, but you might have another level of connection to your subconscious, as you were saying before, and that the rock doesn't have. So let's say that you were unconscious, and at the same time you were connected in a level that the rock isn't, because you still have your subconscious. Let's say, not really sure. I'll be just bullshitting.
No. This is good. This is good. We're brainstorming. So,
Yeah.
would the verdict be that, based on the evidence so far, rocks don't have any chance of quote unquote waking up?
Not right now. Not like at the point. They can become something else. It's gonna take
As far as we
time.
know,
They're
right?
gonna, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. It's like they are alive. They have atoms. These atoms can become something else, but it's not like your atoms that are something else already. And can your brain, brain cells, and the atoms inside of your brain cells can wake up and just be what you are, instead of becoming something else. So, um,
Okay.
you are unconscious as the rock,
Mhm.
but you're not like a rock.
I have more potential.
Exactly. Yeah. Not more potential, because the rock become a mountain, right?
Yes.
Like if
Okay.
lots of rocks come together, they can become a mountain, and a mountain is really bigger than we are, and it has lots of energy, and it's full of life. But it takes more time for that rock to become a mountain than for you in a coma to wake up, or for you and your wife to make love and have a kid. So it's a bit faster for things that are alive, that are breathing, let's say. And it's a bit no, it's a lot slower for rocks and for the planet, and for the cosmos itself.
So consciousness emerging from somebody in a coma, I mean, so those people that don't awaken from the coma and they expire, right? Those people that don't wake up, would you consider that the same as a Big Bang not happening, where there was an opportunity, that time before consciousness, basically? Could unconsciousness, the antithesis of consciousness, do you agree that there was ever a point where there was no consciousness, or do you think consciousness goes back ad infinitum?
Yeah, I kind of agree with that now, because it probably was nothing before it becomes something. But what is nothing? That's the question.
Right, because
even
well, I was just going to say that would beg the question of, the idea of again, I'm using your term, God being everything connected.
Yeah.
That would have to say that there was a period before, quote unquote, God.
Yeah.
There was an unconsciousness.
Yeah,
That awoken, if I'm using the word correctly, if wakes up from a coma, so to speak. Well, I guess a coma would entail that it was conscious at one point and then went to sleep. But I'm saying, the sleep before sleep, right? The birth of consciousness. There would have to be a period before. Or do you agree with that, or I mean, do you think that consciousness was just always infinite, even before the Big Bang? There was, it still is in a sense connected to unconsciousness, I guess, to kind of be vague.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. Like, if unconsciousness and consciousness and subconsciousness are different things, like I think they're all connected, and if the universe was sleeping and then woke up and started to be conscious, even before that, when it was unconscious, it was part of the whole thing, the whole energy of consciousness, subconsciousness, and consciousness. So the three things might be the same thing.
It's all simultaneous. Okay.
Yeah, and it might be what happens when you are in a coma, and when you go to sleep, or when you have too much booze, and you just disconnect, but it's still connected. And when you wake up, you feel the connection again, in then you're conscious, let's say. But when you were really drunk, you did stuff. When you were really drunk, before you saw, let's say you went there and, I don't know, had a fight with someone. You were really rude to someone, and you were not really choosing what to do. It was just your subconscious, or yeah, your brain working by itself, like without you knowing what you're doing, without a choice, let's say. And it might be what happened to the universe as well. Like it was just doing nothing or just doing something, and then it woke up and decided and had a choice, and
Like
then
like
it
a
started to
stone,
it started to expand
like a stone, right?
like the stone. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So it takes us full circle. Okay. Well, hey man, I really appreciate you having this conversation with me. I really liked a lot of the conversation. Sorry if some of the questions were a little far fetched, but you know, consciousness is a very messy and cluttered thing to begin with. So I really appreciate you taking the time to swim through that. Um, yeah, if you'd like to say a few words before we part ways about Conscientees or anything that you're into. I was just on your website before you called, and I saw that 8%, I believe, of all proceeds are going to charity. Is there any particular charity that you're fancying, or is it just
Yeah, the thing about the donations is we are not profitable yet, so I'm just spending money right now on the brand because I started a month and a half ago, and I didn't really want to contact any charity or any kind of non-profit organization and say, look, I have this brand and we're gonna donate 8% of the profits to you this month, because I didn't have any profit to donate.
Gotcha. Okay,
And
so you're
yeah,
upstarting.
but as soon as we start having profit, we are gonna be donating and contacting charities, and I am following lots of small charities, and I don't want to donate to big charities, especially like big charities that have lots of money already. I'll probably donate more to some charities in Australia. There are lots of good guys here doing a great job, and I want to donate to charities that are taking care of children in Syria, for example. But I need to be profitable before I start donating. I am actually donating already, but from my own. And it's not the Conscientees donations yet. I guess when it all starts to work, and the T-shirts start to sell, and the website starts to be more branded, let's say, and more well known out there. Um, I'll probably no, I will make partnerships with some of the charities that I am thinking about donations to do the donations, and then promote them on the website as well and on Instagram as well, and but right now, like, it's quite bad to contact someone and say, hey, I have 10 cents to donate to you.
Hey, I think any amount of donation, whether it 1 cent or $1,000, is helping. I mean,
Yeah,
$1,000 is made up of many cents, So, yeah. Oh,
exactly.
okay. All right.
Yeah, that's why I donate from my own pocket, to some charities and non-profit organizations. But one of the non-profits that I support is Greenpeace, and I know they're quite big. They have lots of money, but they are doing a great job in Australia, trying to protect the Great Barrier, the coral, no, the Great Coral. I don't know how to say it.
The coral reef.
Yeah, the coral reef, yeah, the Great Reef, the Great Barrier Reef, and there are some companies trying to mine the reef, and they're trying to get government support and government approval to mine and to get coal and other stuff from there. And the Greenpeace is doing a great job there, and they're actually winning fight. And I am supporting them right now, and also I'm donating donating a small amount, like $5 a month, to the Children in Syria organization. So it's like, it's not 10 cents. It's not $10,000 as well, but I'm doing my part, and I want to do more with Conscientees. So that's the main reason. Actually, I wanted to create something that would donate profits, and I might increase the amount of donations with the time. I just don't know how profitable it will be in the future. So 8% of the profits sounded right to me to start with, but I really want to donate more. Like, I want to increase the amount of donation. Like, this website, this brand is not made for me to have to become rich. I don't care much about money. I know I need money to live, and I know I need to to have a good life, let's say, to be able to help others, because you cannot help other people when you yourself is starving. You can actually help, but there is just so much you can do. Like,
more flexibility. Yeah.
If you have more, if your life is in a certain level, you can think more about helping others, and that's what happened to me as well. Like, back in Brazil, I was really not starving. I didn't have that much money. Salaries in Brazil are not that good, and I never donated anything back in Brazil, other than just trying to help people when something happened, like a calamity or something. And here in Australia, I could get more money for what I do, the graphics design, let's say. And then when I saw that I had this money on my bank account, I was like, yeah, let's start donating. And I think it's important.
Yes.
To you to help yourself, and then start helping others. Like let's say Bill Gates. Bill Gates is pretty rich, and he's doing a really great job as well with non-profit organizations, and himself has a non-profit organization. I just don't remember the name now, but he's great. Like, this guy is one of the richest people in the world, and he's actually donating a lot of money to lots of non-profit organizations every month. So it's not just about money. Like, if Conscientees grow as big as I want, I really want to donate more than 8% of profits.
Yeah, man, I really like a lot of your material. I saw that you were doing some contests for freebies and things like that. And I think something like that will get people's attention and get the word spreading. And again, I really want to thank you for your time. I am going to be making a documentary called "To Be Human," and I'll be taking excerpts from this interview, and you'll be sort of the liaison on the conversation about consciousness, and I'm going to be adding everything together to put forth a solid viewpoint. And when I put that out, a very large percentage of that will go to charities. It will be for sale, but again, a large percentage of that, I haven't decided what percentage just yet, but I'm basically of the same mind. The one good reason is just specifically, there isn't like a product that I'm producing, like maybe a T-shirt or, but as far as an enrichment, that service I think is very important to get people to, contemplate the things that they, again, hold for granted, and see if there is a way that somebody might pivot on a view. Like, in our conversation today, we've come to the agreement that, consciousness could have had a period of unconsciousness, or that there could be a sleep state, sort of like a stone, or what have you. And I think that was a big breakthrough, because you thought about it and you said, that could be possible, and I find that to be reasonable. And that's exactly the type of thing that I'm out to do, is to get people to, and I've coined the term pivot on maybe a previous stance that they had. So again, kudos to you. Everyone can find Gregory Ramos's products on Conscientees.com. Again, he's out in Sydney, Australia. And I'm going to go ahead and sign off and get to work on editing this and getting it uploaded for the viewers.
Great, man. Great. Thanks for the opportunity again. And I hope you have a great weekend then.
All right, you too. Take care, and I'll go ahead and send you the edited video once I'm finished, and I'll probably send you a link. I don't know if you're on Facebook, but you can find The One Good Reason on Facebook currently. It's facebook.com/the1 good reason, all ran together.
All right. I'm looking for it right now.
All righty. Well, take care, man. Enjoy your weekend and be safe.
You too, man. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Good morning to you and good night to myself.
Yeah. Good night.
All right. Take care.
See ya. Take care.